their cloth.
The torso was bandaged in layers several inches thick. The process took up to 2 weeks and consumed vast amounts of material. One mummy was wrapped in enough linen to stretch a half a mile. Between layers, amulets were secreted in specific locations around the body. Scores have been found on some mummies. Tutankhamun alone had 143, many crafted in gold. Some were images of the gods, others were symbols of eternity and strength. But the most important was a scarab beetle placed over the heart. Usually made of heavy green stone, it was a token of regeneration. A spell written on the back assured its owner his heart would not betray him on the day of judgment. "O my heart, which I had from my mother, do not stand up as a witness against me," begs the deceased. The importance of the heart is vividly illustrated in the Book of the Dead, a collection of spells Egyptians took with them to the grave to help them over the hurdle of Judgment Day. Brought before 42 judges, the deceased had to prove his right to be admitted into paradise. Based on the belief that to know their names was to control them, spell number 125 contained detailed instructions on how to address each of the judges. "I know you, and I know your name. Lord of Truth is your name," announces the deceased. Next comes a declaration of innocence of 42 terrible crimes. All the while the heart is weighed against the feather of Maat, the goddess of truth. The jackal, Anubis, guardian of the underworld, checks the balance, while Thoth, the ibis-headed god of knowledge and truth, prepares to record the result. The monster Amit, part crocodile, part lion, and part hippopotamus, looks on, ready to swallow the heart laden with sin. If the deceased is found worthy, Horus presents him to his father, Osiris, the lord of the underworld. Now immortal, a mask of everlasting gold placed over the face will help guarantee eternal life. The word mummy comes from the Arabic word mumia, a black pitch-like substance known as bitumen, found in the Near East and believed to contain healing powers. When the Arabs saw their first Egyptian mummies, blackened by embalming oil, they thought they'd found a substitute for bitumen and ground them up for medicine. But it was Napoleon's ill-fated expedition to Egypt in 1798 that would arouse a passion abroad for anything Egyptian, especially mummies. Lured by the lucrative market in Egyptian artifacts, an Italian adventurer, Giovanni Battista Belzoni, sought his fortune excavating monuments and tombs. In a published account of his discoveries, he noted the astonishing number of corpses in the tombs surrounding ancient Thebes. "Every step I took, I crushed a mummy in some place or another. Thus I proceeded from one cave to another, all full of mummies piled in various ways, some standing, some lying, and some on their heads. By the 19th century, mummies were so popular, it was not unusual for a gentleman on a tour of Egypt to return home with a corpse for a souvenir. Then an invitation would go out to his friends, "A mummy from Thebes to be unrolled at 2:30, one read.
That'll be a surprise for this afternoon.
Did you enter the tomb, Sid?
Yes, we did. All the crew went to the tomb.
After a fine meal, the high point of the afternoon would come. The mummy would be unwrapped.
Now I have you a surprise, shall we?
Even if it was a sacrilege, audiences were enthralled at the prospect of gazing on the shriveled face of an ancient Egyptian from the time of the pharaohs. During the Industrial Revolution, Americans were even less sentimental and far more practical when it came to mummies. An audacious entrepreneur, Augustus Stanwood of Maine, manufactured paper from their linen bandages when there was a shortage of rags in the United States. Stanwood was able to import tons of mummies for less than 3 cents a pound, half the price of rags at home. But because the linen was discolored by embalming oils, the paper came out brown and was only suitable for meat wrapping. Production was halted when a cholera epidemic broke out, claiming among its victims the rag pickers and cutters of Stanwood's mill. The outbreak was perceived by some as the curse of the dead, but the tradition of brown paper in meat markets can still be found today. Perhaps the most shameful exploitation of Egypt's legacy was the use of mummies for firewood. In his book, Innocents Abroad, Mark Twain describes watching stokers shoveling mummies into the furnace of a steam engine when an engineer shouted, "Damn these plebeians, they don't burn worth a cent. Pass out a king." But the fodder for one man's joke was a source of inspiration to another. A British physician named Augustus Granville began his career specializing in the diseases of women and children. It struck him that mummies were an invaluable source of medical information if only they could be scientifically examined. On a mummy given to him in 1821, he performed the first real autopsy on an ancient Egyptian. From it, he was able to determine that the patient, a woman, had died in her 50s, perhaps of ovarian cancer, the oldest known case in history. Following Granville, Egyptologists took increasing interest in the scientific value of mummies. Today, Egyptian mummies are still contributing to medical science in ways never before envisioned. At the Royal Infirmary in Manchester, England, an anonymous female mummy christened 1766 is being prepped for a unique study. Looking on is Rosalie David, one of the foremost authorities on mummies and ancient diseases. Today, as part of the famed Manchester Mummy Project, 1766 is being examined for the first time using one of the most powerful X-ray machines available. Her exquisite coffin is gilded and inlaid with semi-precious stones. But what's inside is far more valuable to medical science.